I'm Angela, and I just wanted to do a quick check-in. Basically, the deal is that I haven't been writing or video making, obviously, in a while. So about a week ago now, I made sort of like a wrap-up NaNo video where I talked about the experience of writing 50,000 words in a month for the first time. And then I ended up not wanting to edit that video, so I didn't. Basically, long story short, my takeaways from NaNo were that I don't think that kind of goal tracking super works for me. I did do the 50,000 words, but even coming into it, it was really more of like a bucket list thing where I wanted to check it off and then move on with my life. And I've done that. I think it's easy now because I haven't been writing to be like, oh, well, clearly NaNo was a failure because now you're really burnt out and not writing. And I don't think that's really it. Because obviously July of 2020 was not a useful time to test a lot of things. Basically where I am is first off, I'm sort of pausing on writing a little bit generally, whether that was intentional or not. It's been half a month now, so I think it definitely counts. The good thing is that I have sort of structures in my life and that I've got real life writing people and various other things that mean that I do think I'm gonna come back to it in a relatively reasonable amount of time. And so I'm sort of comfortable taking that space. And if it turns out that that's a mistake and I look back and I'm like, oh wow, I definitely should have made myself keep writing, that's how we learn, I guess. Basically where I am in my writing is just that I'm really stuck, and so that's why I've stopped. I mean, I'm also in the middle of moving and work stuff is really crazy, and also the world exists, so there's a lot of sort of external factors that come into it, but really a lot of it is just that I'm stuck. So I have two main projects, Project Harper, which was my first ever novel. I finished my first draft in December of last year, and now I am on my third draft. And I'm really just running out of steam. I've been bringing my second draft in to my writing group, and they're giving me really good critique, but there's a couple of things happening. First off, my plan is for Project Harper to just be a trunk novel, right? So that I will have done the thing and then moved on. And that is, I'm finding it increasingly hard to motivate myself to then make changes once the people that are going to have seen it. So there's partially that. And then I dropped off at sort of a particular point, and some of that was because I was starting NaNo, but a lot of it was just that it was a kind of emotionally draining thing to edit. And so I knew those edits were important, but I wasn't really emotionally ready to do them. The other thing is that my micro story is a lot better than my macro story. That novel is probably deeply structurally flawed to the point of being unsalvageable. And as we get closer to the end, that becomes more apparent. So it's also hard for me to do these edits while I'm also getting feedback from people who are seeing the story in sort of 2-chapter chunks. And I know that we've probably already peaked. I brought what is probably the strongest part of the novel in a couple of weeks ago. And I'm excited to sort of do a postmortem and talk about what worked and what didn't and learn from this experience, but it is making it hard for me to work on revisions. And so I'm not. The other story that I'm working on was my NaNo project, which is Project Ananias. And basically, with NaNo, I just went flat on my face. My life is weird because I've sort of been writing for a really long time, and I've been in physical writing communities since I was a very young teenager, but the actual amount of time that I have spent writing before sort of the last year and a half is not very much. So I'm pretty inexperienced, but I also feel I should be much better than I am in a way that sort of leads to some not super productive or kind perfectionism in the way that I see myself in my work. And that's a thing that I'm in conversation with. But basically, when I was writing Project Harper, I was very deliberate to put a lot of things sort of on easy mode. It's a magic system that I thought a lot about before. It's first person from a character who is in a lot of ways pretty similar to me. And so I was doing that on purpose because I wanted the experience of having finished a novel. And then I had finished a novel, and so I was great, I'm gonna work on this other thing, which is Project Ananias. And it got really complicated really fast. There's 3 point of view characters, it's all a brand new from scratch world, which technically Project Harper isn't in our world, but it's essentially our world light. And so there were just a lot of things that I put sort of in a really challenging mode. And then it's also a really personal story. It is a story that I feel a lot of pressure around, in part because two of the protagonists are on the ACE spectrum, and like their orientation is an important part of the story, and it's something that is like really important to me. But basically what that means is that then as I got into this and was like, oh, this is a higher difficulty level than I'm ready for. As I got into that, it became sort of difficult to reconcile, and I now haven't really touched that project since July, which I'm okay with. But, I mean, it means that I'm not writing. Basically, I have a hard time multitasking. I'm not like a lots of ideas kind of person. I'm a one project at a time kind of person. And all of my projects, I feel like, are in a place that is a little bit challenging. And like, I know that there's ways out of it and I'll figure that out, but I sort of just am where I am in this moment. Like I was saying, I'm like not trying to put too much pressure on myself in this moment. Like, yeah, I could like psychoanalyze that a lot, but I don't really want to. So trying to overthink things less, not more. Let me know how your writing journey has been going down in the comments if you're taking a break from any sort of creative thing. Absolutely, I'd be super curious to know about your thought process with that. If you liked this video, go ahead and give it a little thumbs up. If you are curious about my writing fate, feel free to subscribe and stick around. And as always, happy writing and be well. Bye, loves.